influence, work with people in positions of power and influence. What sparked this was cancel culture. How did we arrive here? Who's advising this individual? And so I wanted a seat at the table, and ghostwriting gave me a seat at the table. I'm able to sit alongside individuals who need the necessary communication support because the world is a battlefield right now.
Welcome to An Entrepreneur's Vibes, the podcast that gives insight into the minds of visionary entrepreneurs and business leaders. Brought to you by The Right Direction, a leading professional and technical writing company based in North America. Each episode, we explore the stories and experiences of those who dared to dream, took the leap, and built their own empires. So if you're just starting out your entrepreneurial journey or you're already a seasoned business pro, you'll find inspiration, knowledge, and good vibes right here. Today's guest is a powerhouse storyteller, an apologetic truth teller, and a woman who is redefining what it means to own your voice and legacy. She is a celebrity ghostwriter, journalist, speaker, educator, and the brilliant mind behind WritersBlok, a full-service ghostwriting agency trusted by high-profile leaders, tastemakers, and industry giants alike. Our guest has been featured in Essence, Forbes, Black Enterprise, Hello7, and Shondaland. Her work has shaped narratives behind some of today's most influential brands. Today, she's not only a trusted advisor to top-tier clients, but also an adjunct professor at George Brown College, committed to creating real-world learning experiences for the next generation of communicators. She's a champion for Black voices, an advocate for children's literacy, and the chief storytelling officer of a women-led collective that's shaking rooms one story at a time. Get ready for an honest, empowering, and inspiring conversation with a woman who believes in writing the future, not waiting for it. Pauleanna Reid, welcome to the show.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. That was the best introduction I've ever had.
You are a woman of many talents, and we're so glad to have you on our podcast. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's go. I'm excited to
Well,
chat.
you said that you started your career in media with a number two pencil and a dream. What was the
Mhm.
first big moment that told you you're in the right path?
The first big moment that told me that I was in the right path is when I was first published in the newspaper. So, what a lot of people don't know is that before Forbes, I was writing for every major newspaper across the country in Canada. And when I was a young journalist in my 20s, early 20s, the first sign was just seeing my name in print. It let me know that I had made it at the time, like that was making it to me, making money from my art and just being able to hold my check. I still have the very first check I've ever earned money from. It's laminated on my bedroom wall. And it's a reminder that there's more where that came from and that I can do anything I put my mind to.
That is really cool. I also remember that time. I also dreamed of being a writer where I felt like if I could see my name on a newspaper and they
Yeah.
published my article, that was like making it. That is like the
Oh my
pinnacle of
gosh.
success
The best feeling.
for a writer. I mean, that sounds amazing. And, you've talked openly about academic challenges in high school and even dropping
Mhm.
out of college. How would you say those experiences shaped who you are today?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that the education system paints us all with one big broad brush, and many children get lost in the system, right? It's very easy. I remember in elementary school, it was very easy for me to just get by. Like I could hide behind other people, I could fake it till I made it. I feel like most teachers just pass you anyways, even if you show low grades. And so I realized very early on that I had a comprehension issue. And, when I became an adult, I learned that it's a processing deficiency. But I really had to reprogram my thinking to believe that I could adjust and I could make the world work for me. I could make rooms work for me. And essentially, I taught myself how to improve my reading and writing skills over time. It wasn't a single teacher that did that, which is very unfortunate that teachers did not necessarily lend a hand to help me. Actually, a few teachers embarrassed me in high school when I would get my quiz back. And it just helps me understand today that you can make things work for you if you create a framework or a formula. If you learn to hack your brain, I think every single person should learn the ways in which they learn and how they retain information best. Most people don't even know that there are 7 different learning styles. Most people don't even know their learning style. And I highly advise people to look into that.
I feel like a lot of our listeners would definitely like understand what you're saying. Like the current way and the current system of education, it's like a one thing for everyone, but that's not how
Yeah,
everyone learns.
exactly.
And what would you say was like the motivating factor for you to turn the world into your classroom?
So my mental health was deteriorating in high school for many different reasons beyond academics, but academic was one part of it. And when I went to the elders in my life, so whether it's counselors, teachers, parents, and expressed that I wanted to be a creative, that I wanted to write, we're talking back in like '06, which, there wasn't really a pathway for writers. Every adult in my world told me that I would never make a living from my art. Every adult in my world looked at my report card and made their predictions based off my grades. I failed grade 11, 12 English. I failed grade 10 math and science. I failed many of my classes. And so they allowed what was in black and white to predict what lane I should go into. And many people told me that I should play it safe and get a cubicle job. And eventually, I did because I conformed. I broke out of that years later. So turning the world into my classroom just means to adopt a more expansive way of thinking, to not follow the status quo. It means to be open to change. It means to write down my goals every day and dream big and color outside the lines. And that was always really important to me. I was bullied as a kid and tortured in school by assholes. And I would write in my notebook when I'd spend time by myself in the library, in the girls' bathroom, in the cafeteria. I would doodle to myself in my notebook and just literally dream of what life would be like outside of the hellhole I was in. And eventually those dreams came true. So, like a lot of the things that I'm living today started in my mind or started on a paper napkin or started in my notebook first.
And growing up, did you get to have better mentors than the ones you met in school? And if so, what would you say is the role of mentorship and how that played into your journey? Why do you think that's so central to your work today?
Yeah, so I met a young woman on Facebook in 2009. I saw that she was a businesswoman, that she carried herself really well. She had confidence, she was gorgeous. And I said, whatever magic she has, I want a little bit of that. So, me being, I think I might have been 21 at the time, I messaged her on Facebook and I asked her to dinner because I just wanted to learn about how she arrived at this point in her life. And luckily for me, she was so, so open. Today, maybe I would advise a different approach, but she was so open. We went to dinner, and that was the start, 2009. That was the start of our relationship, that was the start of our mentor relationship. And she's still my mentor to this day. I can call her anytime, and she's so successful and she's amazing. And it allowed me to understand that there are people who are willing to help if you just raise your hand. She was the one that persuaded me to start a blog. And she was the one that got me the opportunity to start writing for newspapers. And she really pushed me to start my writing career and like validated my dreams. And so that was the start of me just understanding that, yeah, people are willing to help. Not everyone's an asshole. You have to speak up and you have to raise your hand and you have to tell people what you want
Mhm.
in order to receive it. And I've paid it forward since. I've launched a mentorship program. I started in 2015. And I've mentored over 200 women in 11 countries. Mentorship is a big part of my world, a big part of my life. I feel like it's the greatest gift I can give with my life. And one of the reasons that I started teaching at a college part-time outside of everything that I'm doing is because literacy education is very important to me. But I also feel like beyond a teacher, beyond a professor, these students also need a listening ear. They need a friend. They need a confidant. They need a mentor. And so I take my role very, very seriously. When I ask students for feedback every year, I always get top marks when it comes to my feedback. And I think they appreciate how I approach my teaching style, my philosophies, and I love all of my kids.
I think that's amazing that you've kind of become the person you must have needed when you were a kid to
Mhm.
to be that mentor because maybe you were failed by your teachers in school and didn't have the best experience. So now you're like correcting that and being the voice that other children need. growing up. And I think that's really
Exactly. And
beautiful.
it's just the thing is, it doesn't require a lot of effort. Like all of us are mentors in some capacity, right? A mentorship, it doesn't mean it's lifelong. Sometimes a single conversation can brighten someone's day. Sometimes just making someone feel seen can change how they see themselves, right? So I think we should all remember that every interaction, every conversation, every time you make someone feel validated, it's like, you move the needle on helping them move forward in their life.
I totally agree. That's beautiful. And when did you first discover the power of storytelling as a tool for healing, impact, and influence?
Oh, when I was a kid, when I used to watch Berenstain Bears or Arthur, The Magic School Bus, Power Rangers, Sailor Moon, storytelling has been a big part of my life. I'm aging myself, but on Saturdays, me and my brother would go through the TV guide, the physical book TV guide, and we'd highlight all the shows we wanted to watch. And I loved getting lost in the plot. I loved screaming at the climax. I loved crying when a character seemed like, their world was falling apart. Storytelling also manifested itself in my family during the Sunday dinner, right? Every Sunday, we'd meet at my grandmother's house growing up, and my extended family and we'd all, we'd sit around the table, we'd have, this beautiful gathering, and we'd laugh and we cried, we'd share jokes. And, it was a great way to connect before the start of the week. And so those things are you don't forget those experiences. So I understood it as young as elementary school. Now in my adult life, I understand it by way of it's a connector. It's a way to um, relate to other people, see other people. It's a way to increase your sales in your business. Storytelling is necessary in every facet of our lives.
I think that's totally true. There's just some sort of magic that you're able to communicate through words, and it's all around us really. And it's very like you said, it's so influential, especially for children. Like the kind of media that they consume very early on is going to probably dictate what kind of media they, later on in life appreciate. So it really is such a powerful tool, writing. And with that said, I just wanted to talk a little bit about writer's block. Could you tell us about the moment you decided to start Writer's Block, and what would you say was the gap in the market that you were filling?
So writer's block actually started in my parents' living room. So as a creative, the world can feel lonely. And I would post flyers on Facebook and at coffee shops, and I'd literally invite strangers into my parents' house and we'd share our work, whether it was poetry, writing, singing. We'd literally just sit in my parents' living room and just share our work and just talk about our experiences. And that manifested and evolved into Writer's Block becoming a company and helping people also find their voice, improve their storytelling ability, ghostwriting. I discovered ghostwriting back in 2014 when I was reading an article. I stumbled across a ghostwriter who shared her story online. And I thought to myself, that's such an interesting job. I'm like, maybe I could do that. But I didn't have any connections. I didn't know how I was going to get started, but I put it in my memory bank. The following year, I met a woman who owned a communications agency, and I worked for her remotely while working my 9 to 5. And she hired me to ghostwrite a speech for one of the biggest supermodels in the world at the time. And I wrote a speech for her client, and they had no feedback. They had no notes. They said it was perfect. And that was my first indication that I could do this. And she really exposed me to the world of celebrity. And so a few years later, I started my own agency, 2017, and I coined it a celebrity ghostwriting agency because I wanted to work with the most brilliant top leaders in the world. Not to say that every celebrity is brilliant. So let me take that back. Because not everyone who has power and influence knows what to do with it. But I wanted to work with people who are highly regarded. I wanted to work with people in positions of power and influence who can move the needle on some of the most important agendas in the world. And what sparked this was cancel culture. I used to ask myself, how did we arrive here? Who's advising this individual? And so I wanted a seat at the table, and ghostwriting gave me a seat at the table. I'm able to sit alongside individuals who need the necessary communication support because the world is a battlefield right now. And I am in a really great position where I can help people navigate cultural, societal, and generational sensitivities, help them bring communities together, help them shift narratives and conversation. And if it lights me up, no day's ever the same.
It does seem to me like you have this power of communication that you're now able to help people with. And it's funny that you talked about cancel culture a while ago because Writer's Block has helped craft some of pop culture's most talked about moments. How do you keep the team grounded and creative while working in these high stakes environments?
That's a great question. Running an agency can feel chaotic because of tight deadlines, because of some of the heavy workload that we're under. We also deal with a lot of high stakes, high crisis communications. And with some of the projects, most of the projects, you get like one time. You don't, there's no room for error, no room for mistakes. So it can cause a lot of stress in our nervous system. We have a team therapist that we see as a group, as a collective, once a quarter. And the team can also book individual sessions with her. I think that it's also important to check in on the team as well. I also have a COO. Well, she's actually the Chief Growth Officer, CGO. And she is absolutely wonderful. The team feels very comfortable talking to her. I am at the helm of the company, and so I'm moving at such a fast pace. And my mind and my brain is all over the place at times. And so she is such a calm to the storm. And so the team feels comfortable leaning into her. And I also think it's really important for the team to take breaks, right? Like we don't have, it's going to sound so funky, but we don't have designated hours. Like if anybody wants to take time off, there's no question. And so we get our work done somehow, magically, but I'm also very flexible with the team schedules, right? Because I know that mental health is not something you can see. And sometimes you need a mental health break. Sometimes you just need a breather. You need to take a beat. And so, we get our shit done, but we also make sure that rest is a big part of our agenda as well.
It sounds to me that you've created this really conducive and healthy work environment, but I'm really
We're
fascinated.
trying. We're trying. We're not perfect.
I'm really fascinated. You said that your team has access to like therapists. So I really just wanted to ask, like, how high stake are we talking about? Like, do your clients, like when they need something, is it because there's such a time constraint, or is it like really challenging what their asks are? Like, how high stake are we talking about?
The current climate requires communications assistance. And what I mean by that is you could say the wrong thing and lose your livelihood, lose your job, right? You could say the wrong thing and offend a lot of people. There's just so much happening in the world. I think leaders feel more comfortable having a communication support right by their side. So many different scenarios. A client could be giving a keynote speech, a client could be winning an award, a client could be sending a company email to offices around the world. A client could be writing a book. At every point in turn, our clients are visible. They're in front of audiences, and they have to be very thoughtful and mindful and intentional how that message is going to land, right? And so we want to ensure that we're navigating cultural, societal, generational sensitivities in a manner that allows the client to still voice their opinion, to state their facts, to move the needle on their agenda, but they're doing it in a way that will resonate with the audience and that will bring people together because communication is a tool, right? It could ignite wars or it could bring peace, right? And so we really want to ensure that we're just putting a lot of thought into how any of our messages land with audiences.
I totally understand. It is kind of sensitive. And I guess if you were to, give them or advise them something wrong to say, that challenge
Oh,
falls on you as well. So I can get
exactly.
now how your team can be quite overwhelmed. But what does it mean to run an all-women team of content ninjas? How has that shaped the culture at Writer's Block?
I just love how creative we are. I love how every member of my team thinks. I love how expansive we are. So, what's really important to me is the diversity on our team, right? And the diversity comes in the form of language, religion, geography, background, experience, education, right? Like all of us have incredible superpowers. And when you bring those together, our whiteboard sessions, our brainstorming sessions are absolutely magnetic. So that's really important to me. Being a content ninja, how I would define that is just being able to accurately solve the problems for our clients. And one thing I really love is that our clients like that we're swift. Our clients love that we are accurate. Our clients love that we are thoughtful. We're great thought partners. Like our clients are very, very well taken care of. And so I'm just like really proud of my team because we are almost 10 years in, you
Wow.
know? And what's really beautiful about our togetherness is that people don't really leave my agency. And if they do, it's because I've equipped them to pursue better and bigger opportunities. And I'm really, really proud of that because I think leaders create other leaders. And so
That's
that's always the goal.
That's true. Amazing. And congratulations on 10 years in the business.
Thank you.
Since you brought that up, you know what? I did want to ask you, since, your profession is in writing and communication and you've been in the business for 10 years, have you noticed a change in the last 2 years, I would say, since AI has been in the market, ChatGPT, for example,
Mhm.
and text generation, AI text generation has been kind of a thing, and even in content generation. What are your thoughts about that? Has that made any disruptions for you? I would say since if you're working with like high stake clients, they probably don't, use AI
Right.
for their messaging. But
Yeah,
has it had any sort of impact, or what are your thoughts about it?
that's a great question. So here's how I see it. There's no running from AI. There's no running from ChatGPT.
Mhm.
However, in my profession, I look at it as fast food versus soul food. Obviously, us being the soul food. I've definitely had clients, sneakily try to use AI and ChatGPT only to come back because they weren't happy, right? They weren't happy with the output. I see videos on social media all the time about the brilliance of AI and ChatGPT, but I wish we would balance the conversation with the flaws of it as well, right? I think the CEO of OpenAI recently was quoted saying that he's surprised people actually trust it, right? And so that says a lot. For us, it really hasn't hurt my business. I will say that. Like clients always come back. They may use it here and there, but they always come back and we always have to fix it. And then the other thing is we're just not worried. I think you just cannot replicate the human experience,
That's
you
totally
know?
true.
So call me old school. We use it for the sake of productivity, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
to help with research, maybe
Mhm.
ideation at times, but call me old school. I like a good whiteboard and a
Mhm.
pen, and we still do whiteboarding sessions with the team. So that is that's where we're at right now. If people choose to use it, I mean, that's all on them, but just I feel like the creativity, human connection, there's just the output is just not the same. It's
Mhm.
not.
That's totally true. And I wanted to talk more about your work as an educator, but do your students ever use it?
Actually, recently I brought in one of my peers who is obsessed with AI. I brought her in to talk to them about how they can effectively use it and to
Mhm.
help them experiment. So it's not a conversation I'm running away from. I think that students are going to use it behind your back, in your front. Like they're going to use it anyways, but how do they use it ethically? I think that's really important.
That is really how it is. It's just that students have like this arsenal, this tool available to them, and it's just scary to think that, when we were writing essays, we would have like a first draft, and then we would have a second draft, and then a final draft, and
Yeah,
they could literally just like prompt it on a computer. So it's scary that the art of writing might be lost along the way.
I
But
know.
I believe there's like industry giants like you and really great communicators out there that show us that these tools are nothing compared to the real
Well,
thing.
I'm like, what makes me sad is that like the conversation is just around productivity. How do we do things faster, right? Better, I might challenge that, but what are we learning from it? You wrote your prompt or your caption or your essay faster. But like, did you learn anything in the process? Like, can you structure sentences better? Are
Mhm.
you better at punctuation and grammar? To me, it's not teaching us anything. And that's where I get like a little bit upset
That I
because
totally understand.
we're moving away from strengthening our ability to learn and to grasp concepts
Mhm.
and to critically think and to problem solve. Like, Those are all very necessary skills.
Totally. It's like we're looking at the end product too much, but we're
Exactly.
not teaching
The
the kids
messy
how to get
middle
there.
is
Yeah.
my favorite. The messy
Yeah.
middle is my favorite part.
Mhm.
And I mean, people just don't got time for it anymore. And that's fine. I do.
Mhm.
So, I'm gonna stay there. Yeah.
And yeah, hopefully we can convey to our audience listeners or our watchers, to still practice the art of like writing, reading to hone in their skills and not be too dependent on technology. But
Exactly.
well, enough about AI. As a celebrity ghostwriter, how do you strike the balance between preserving a client's authentic voice and enhancing their message?
The minute I get on a call with a client, I'm studying their voice. So I am listening for whether they have unique and witty phrases that make them an individual. I'm studying whether or not they are using long or short sentences, whether or not they are taking pauses or breaths in between words. And so the voice, we try and align it as perfectly as we can, because I think that's really important. Now, the message, here's where a lot of people need the assistance, right? They know what they want to say. They don't necessarily know how they want to say it or the framework that would help it land. So we will interview a client. So obviously my background's in journalism, many of the writers on my team, their background's in journalism as well. And we'll interview the client, we'll get their thoughts, and their thoughts are kind of all over the place, a little bit messy, right? I mean, we're dealing with brilliant people here, right? But we just allow them to just speak. Don't even worry about how it's framed. And then we take that information and obviously assess the audience, the objective, the assignment at hand, et cetera. It could be a book, it could be a speech, it could be a video script, et cetera. And then we work it like a puzzle, right? And we put the pieces together and we think through the flow and the style, right? We think through we may coach clients on the delivery. We also have a designated research team. So we have a group of research analysts who will also help fill any gaps, bring forward any facts, fact check what we're saying. And as a collective, we will then sign off and give it to the client.
So it sounds like everything that you give to your clients back is accurate and authentic to them. Like it sounds like something they would say, and it's also rooted in like obviously fact.
But it's also a collaborative process. Like we do want their input. Clients are more than welcome to give their input because that's how you get to elevate the client experience, but also learn more about them.
Mhm.
So some of our clients we've been working with for many, 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 many years, 5, 6, 7 years. And at this point, I mean, things are like a well-oiled machine, but in the beginning, it might have been a little bit disjointed. Like we're learning about each other, right? So, I mean, we have a phenomenal accuracy rate, but when you meet someone for the first time, it takes time to warm up that relationship.
I can see that happening. And what would you say are the most common storytelling mistakes that you see high profile leaders make, or maybe not even leaders, just authors in general?
Well, my number one rule is to always ask yourself, what is my proximity to the topic? And if you don't know shit about it, don't speak on it,
Mm.
right? I think that's the first thing. The next thing is you don't have to talk on everything. You don't have to contribute to every conversation. And then like sit with your thoughts. I think we think something and then we tweet it out. Or we think something and then it has to be this long essay. It's like you're allowed to sit, give yourself a minute, organize your thoughts, and
Mhm.
then share it with the world. So I would say those three things are like top of mind.
How would you say, how does one transform a personal narrative into a strategic brand asset?
One thing I'm noticing in recent years is that many executives at some of the top companies in the world, they want to detach their identities from their titles, right? So they would love to speak up on certain things, or they want to create a personal brand. They want to start thinking about their second act. So their second act typically looks like public speaking, sitting on paid boards, and consulting. And they just don't know where to start. They just don't know where to start. So how I define a personal brand asset is, whether I'm working with an executive who wants to shape a personal brand, or whether I'm working with an individual who wants to write a book, a speech, a lot of these assets that we create, they are going to shape how someone perceives you. They are going to help build the community that is going to help move the needle on your agenda. These assets, like a book, will outlive you. Not only will it outlive you, but it's also something that you can eat from for a long time, right? It doesn't have the shelf life doesn't have an expiry date. So that's how we define a brand asset, right? A brand asset is something that's absolutely game changing for what you consider the next chapter. It's a stepping stone, it's a communications tool, it's a way for you to make a living, right? And so the more assets that you collect, right? The more assets that you produce, the more assets that you collect thoughtfully and intentionally can really change your life. I started my personal brand maybe like 15 years ago. It's the one thing in my, it's like, I do not regret it. Like starting, you never regret writing a book, starting public speaking. You never regret building community. It's game changing, life changing.
I wanted to ask you now, like, how do you approach writing speeches versus writing long form content like books?
I mean, they're two very different assets, right? It really just depends on, let's take two different speeches, for instance. You can have a high profile figure who's giving a keynote speech versus someone who may be speaking at, let's say, the Grammys and accepting an award, right? So you have 3 minutes versus, let's say, 30 minutes. What's really interesting is that the shorter speech is also the hardest to write because you're working with such a short time frame and you want to make it impactful and it's not necessarily a moment in time that you want to miss out on, right? So you're in front of the world, what do you want to say? Longer speeches are actually quite easy, right? Because you have a longer period of time to elaborate on three key themes, right? And so I think it depends on the audience. It depends on where this story or speech will be published or recited. It also depends on like what do you want to stand on, what do you want to fight for, what conversations you want to contribute to. And then we think through how do you want to frame the correspondence so that it's easily digestible for the audience. We never want to use complex language. We never want to talk over their heads. We want to make sure that we still include the client's personality, right? It doesn't like not every speech needs to be so serious. Sometimes it's clever, sometimes it's witty, sometimes they're the auntie, the girl next door. Like it really just depends on the landscape. I will say this, something I've mentioned in former interviews is that one speech I'll never forget is we wrote a speech for a client who spoke at George Floyd's funeral. And I mean, that takes on a completely different tone than, let's say, someone who's speaking in front of 1,000 graduates, right? So our ability to read the room is really important. And we always welcome the client's participation in sharing what they want to talk about and what is the problem they're going to solve for the audience. What do they want the audience to know, feel, or understand after the last word? And also, how does this singular asset, speech, book, video, whatever, how does it build a stepping stone for the next phase of their career?
I think it's an amazing process that you have. You really aren't just focusing on just giving them an end product, like just giving them a speech. You really care about like the message they personally want to share with their audience that they're probably not able to do so themselves. So I think it's like such a unique and personal approach that you take in your business.
We do so many different types of work, but some of the best, oh my gosh, the other day we got asked to pen opening remarks for a wedding on behalf of the bride and groom.
Mhm.
Like that makes me want to cry. You know what I mean? Like, we've done so many big hoop to hoop, like big stuff. And then, a bride, a peer of mine, she asked us to help her with remarks. And I was like, oh, what a great departure and a great break from like high intensity.
Mhm.
We can be soft, we can be gentle, we can be intimate. I love the variety that we have in our portfolio.
That's amazing. I didn't really expect that you would be helping those types of clients as well, who aren't so high
Mhm.
profile. So I think, yeah, that variety must be really exciting in the office. But you've worked with
Yeah.
brands like Google, LinkedIn, and Wealthsimple. What makes your storytelling approach resonate in corporate spaces?
I love working with corporations. When you hire me to speak at your corporation, you know what you're going to get, right? So I use my YouTube channel as a portfolio for my speaking. I think they appreciate that I tell it like it is. I think they appreciate that I'm not like, I don't conform, you know? They know that they're going to get a good laugh. They know that I'm going to have a lot of stories to bring to the table. They know that I'm probably going to switch things up. And I've had some of the most great experiences speaking on some of the stages at these corporations. Because when they bring in a speaker, like we all know, we've all been there. Because I used to work in corporate. When a guest speaker comes in, you automatically think that this guest speaker is just going to bore you to death. And I
Hmm.
love coming in with the energy and I love coming in with the insight and I love coming in with my lived experience to help, shake things up.
What does it take to build a story that not only speaks to people, but actually shakes the room?
So I'm going to say this. I think delivery is the most important.
Mhm.
I remember writing a speech for a client only to find out that she had cue cards on stage. And I
Mhm.
was devastated because it was a phenomenal speech, right? We both were very excited about it, but she didn't look up at the audience once. And so that was early in my career. Since then, we've proactively started working with clients on their delivery, but I couldn't, my jaw was on the floor after all that hard work that we had put in. I think people underestimate the power of delivery, the power of clearly articulating your thoughts, being witty, being like showing your personality, because you can have two people that say the same thing and it's going to land very differently.
You talked about like now you coach your clients. Do you teach them how to tell the speech?
I mean, I've been public speaking for 12 years, maybe even more actually. And I'm consistently booked, like very consistently. I'm very sought after. So clients really love working with us simply because we're not teaching them from a textbook. We're teaching them from like lived experiences. Like clients love looking at my brand and they're like, give me what you got. You know what I mean? The website, the this, the that, the speaking career. Like, and I can literally tell them brick by brick how I've built my speaking career. I can literally tell them what has worked in, mind you, we're two different individuals, but there's a lot of overlap there. I think with anything, to be good at anything, I think it's practice. Just like I tell my students, like reading and writing is not an innate talent. You have to practice it, right? And you have to practice it beyond when you need those tools, when you need those skills. So we work with clients to help get them comfortable at first. Like at first, it's just getting comfortable with saying the words, right? Let it roll off your tongue. So like we're doing rounds of reading, right? And then we assess whether or not, so like usually they have a presentation deck. Um, so we're using the presentation deck to design language cues, right? That will spark, okay, this is what I have to say next. Then we have other clients who may want to memorize the entire speech. Like I'm someone who can memorize an entire speech, right? I have like photographic memory, so I can see the speech as I'm reciting it. So like it also like we going back to learning styles in the beginning of the interview, it
Mhm.
really depends how the time client retains the information, right? And the best ways in which they can recite the information. So like do they need memorizing? Well, do they need to memorize it or do they need language cues on a deck? We're definitely not doing cue cards. I'm so against that. But learning the client in an intimate way will help shape how we coach them to get to the final result.
I think these are like you've given us like really great advice for public speaking. Like there are a lot of things that you can adopt because I think it's really beautiful when you said that writing isn't or even public speaking isn't really an innate talent. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of people would feel good to know that this is something that they can hone. So
Mhm.
thank you for those amazing advice. And I wanted to ask, like, what has ghostwriting taught you about leadership?
That's a great question. So in 2020, I took a step down for 6 weeks so I could take a women's leadership course at Yale. And I knew that given the climate we were in, I had to relearn, unlearn, rewrite some of the narratives around leadership. I had grown up with monster bosses in my corporate life, and I felt like tension and stress was getting to me,
Mm.
and it was evident in my outlook and how I was communicating with my team. So I took it upon myself to retrain myself. Well, I didn't retrain myself, Yale did. And it was really great to sit amongst other leaders who were experiencing similar thoughts. I think every leader needs to humble themselves. Like that's why I have my chief growth officer. She is like my guiding compass. Before I do anything, I typically run things by her because she's a great filter. I do training every year. I think speed is very important in business, but when it comes to leadership, I've learned to like slow down a bit and think through my actions and think through how I communicate with others.
And earlier you shared that you have a background in journalism and corporate communications. How would you say these things that you've learned through your journey has changed your approach when managing high stakes or crisis messaging for your clients?
With anything, just thinking it through. Like, even though something is high stakes, and even though something may require speed, I think it's important internally that I have my own checks and balances as to number one, is this a client that I want to take on? Right? Number two, can I solve the problem for this client? Do I have the capability or the capacity to solve the problem for this client? And then number three, walking through and thinking through how I'm going to get to the answer or the solution that we're going to provide. I don't rush anything. We're very swift and we're very accurate, but that does require me to have some inner dialogue and talk through like how do I want to approach this? Like I look at everything like a long form division math equation. Back in the day, we pen and paper, you cross out the one and you put the seven, but like now kids use calculators, but like I work things out like a math equation. Like I said, like I've been saying throughout this interview, whiteboarding is really important to me. So like just like with journalism, when I have a story and I'm thinking through the angle and I'm thinking through and I'm doing research and I'm fact checking, like there's a process. Like I apply those same skills to any job that crosses our desk at WritersBlok.
I was really surprised when you said you sometimes ask yourself if this is even a client that I want to work with. I wanted to ask you,
Oh
have you
yeah.
ever said no to a client?
Yes, many, 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 many times, many times.
Mhm.
And so, like, we have worked for the good guys and the bad guys. I'll say that. However, because if you don't work with the bad guys, who's going to challenge them, right? Like, who's going to, and I say the bad guys, I do mean, individuals who are a bit corrupt,
Mhm.
who are tyrants, and probably, everyone on their team is yes men. So, like, in some cases, I will come in and, I don't necessarily, I'm not on their payroll, so I don't have to say yes to everything. I could come in and shake things up. But yeah, I mean, it really depends. So, like, before we agree to work with a client, we will look up their background. We start with a quick Google and then we go much, much deeper. So like I need to trace, I'm looking back like 10 years plus. Like I need to trace and make sure that your words, I need to see if you had any previous crisis. Like there's so many things that we research and look up before we say yes.
Well, thank you for
Political views, like so many things.
Well, that's really fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. But I did want to touch on teaching and mentorship. You recently became an adjunct professor at George Brown College. What inspired you to step into that new role?
So I had been doing university lectures for many, many years. And
Mm.
at some point I said to myself, it'd be really cool if I held a part-time position. Several of my friends had also held part-time positions. And so it was just about paying my dues and putting the work in, right? I don't think anything should be given to you. And
Mhm.
so after doing so many university guest lectures, one of the lectures, the Dean of English, happened to sit in at George Brown College. She really liked my teaching style. We kept in touch. And when she was looking for a part-time professor, I saw it on LinkedIn and I reached out to her and she was like, oh my gosh, absolutely yes. It was an easy yes. But that's also because I got my reps in. I got my practice in. I've been doing university guest lectures for years, so I felt very comfortable. And now in the classroom, I mean, I look forward to teaching my kids this semester we're doing Tuesdays. And I love the questions that they ask. I love being there for them. I always tell them, like, don't look at me like you're a professor. Like, I am here to mentor you and I'm here to guide you. And any questions you have about anything, you can always ask. And so, I mean, like you mentioned before, like I am in a position now where I can't disrupt the system, but I can definitely be there for 40 students at a time each semester. And I'm going on my third year, so I'm quite comfortable in the role and I'm going to be here for as long as they'll have me.
What's been the most eye-opening part of teaching communications in a college setting?
The most eye-opening thing is that that most students are not where they need to be academically. The hardest part about my role is getting students to raise their hand and book one-on-one time for improvement. It could be some of them may feel embarrassed. It could be some of them don't think they need help. But I want to get students, I'm trying to get students accustomed to asking for help when they need it,
Mhm.
right? Because it's in black and white. And in my feedback when I'm marking, I will say, please book some one-on-one time with me so we can help improve your marks. Some people think they're too cool. So that's probably the most eye-opening thing is I'm surprised that many students are not, and don't get it twisted, like some students have drastic improvement over the course of our class or over the course of their time at school. But if you look statistically across North America, most adults, 46% of adults read at a grade six level. And so it's very evident that we have a critical thinking issue in our country, a writing and reading literacy issue in our country. And so it's not the college's fault. It's stemming from grades three, four, and five, right? Like when you're in, many kids in elementary school are not even meeting their grade requirements. So it follows them throughout their entire school journey.
I mean, that sounds kind of alarming because you would think that they would become better communicators with like social media where you're always like interacting with people, but then in person, it's like they don't have those same skills. Like they can't speak up for themselves. Maybe it's kind of a challenge. How do you help your students through that then?
I wouldn't even say social media is helping at all. I think it's hurting
Mm,
because you're speaking in short form.
mm.
You are quick to react. You're not thinking through your post before you post it. You just want to share your thoughts with the world. In the classroom, you are forced to have periods. Think through your punctuation, your grammar, your sentence structure, your style, your tone, your formatting. It's a lot more formal. And so what I really love is that like I'm able to give very detailed feedback so they can look back and learn from it. Whereas social media, you're just left to your own devices, right? There's no, and so like that's what I really like is being able to have conversations and just asking them tough questions. And so every week, we talk about the homework. We talk about like what were some of my observations? I can get hands-on, I can get my hands dirty, and that's what I really like.
We already talked about like traditional educational settings and traditional textbooks often lag behind industry trends. How do you keep your curriculum fresh and practical for your students?
A lot of my curriculum is not textbook based. So when I create the curriculum, it has to get approved by the dean.
Mm.
And so I will incorporate, I know generally speaking what they need to learn, but my delivery and how I frame each lesson is creative, fun. It's based in lived experiences, a lot of storytelling. Like I really like to keep the class engaged through, sometimes I'll reference hip hop, sometimes I'll reference art, sometimes I'll reference stories from my own life. So that's really important. And so when I get the feedback from the students, every semester they tell me that like I'm the best professor they ever had. They also tell me what other professors are doing. Other professors, so I have a virtual class. Other professors are not coming on camera. Other professors are very monotone. Other professors sometimes they just read off slides. Like they also tell me how low the bar is. And this is not specific to George Brown. I mean, I've taught many classrooms from high school to university to college, like my because I was a guest lecturer. So, I mean, we're talking a span of several years, and the feedback I've collected, it's wild to me. It's very easy to stand out as a teacher. You just have to try. But don't get it twisted. I will say this because I know teachers who've been in the game for many years so will come for me. I know teachers are very fatigued. I know not all teachers have the resources that they need,
Mhm.
right? And so I also want to, play both sides. I'm very fortunate, I am teaching because I want to. I have a great business. I have the flexibility. And so, I'm coming in part-time once a week, whereas I know there are other teachers who have very heavy workloads, triple the students I have. And so I want to respect that.
That's really valid. Yeah, a lot of our teachers out there are very underpaid and overworked. So it is a problem. And earlier we were talking about like literacy. You're a strong advocate for children's literacy. I know you even donate part of your profits to this cause. How important is this cause, children's literacy for you? And do you probably have like a memory or experiences that fueled your passion for this cause?
The statistics are very clear, right? And so I feel like if you empower kids, then you raise empowered adults. And that's really as simple as that. I think every single one of us have a special teacher who made us feel seen. For me, that was Mrs. DiDonato in kindergarten, Mrs. Diane Fair in grade 5, and Mrs. Barker in grade 10. And so I just think back to teachers who made me feel special and made me feel seen, and they knew something was off with me, but they paid close attention. They're the ones that kept me going. And so that's why I do it. I just think it's important. I'm now a new mom.
Mhm.
And, I would want my child to feel empowered to ask me anything they want, feel empowered to bring me any book and just know that we're going to pace ourselves and we're going to take our time. And I just think it's important. I just think it's important. Reading and writing are fundamental skills that every single person needs, no matter the age, stage, career, industry, basic fundamental skills that most of North Americans are not thriving at.
Mhm.
So to me, it's mind-boggling.
It is, they are very important skills and they can be very empowering when used correctly. So I definitely understand how important this cause is for you. And I just wanted to ask, earlier you said you have like therapists available in the office. I wanted to ask you personally how you take care of your own mental health while carrying, the emotional weight of sometimes having to tell other people's stories.
I sleep. I have a young family. I just got married. When I can, I sleep, and that helps so much. I feel like I'm 100 years behind. I spend a lot of time with my family. My mom's retired. My dad's going to retire in a few years. So I love spending time with my extended family. I make sure that I eat. I won't say I eat super clean, but I try to put brain foods in my body, which I think is really important. And I do see a therapist. I've been with my current therapist for 4 years, maybe 5, and she's absolutely wonderful. And I think therapy is like car maintenance. You don't just go to a therapist when you feel depressed. You go to a therapist. I love when I go to my therapist and I give her a good report,
Mhm.
So I think that's all. I think that's all really important. I love being outside. I go for walks, physical activity. All of that's really important. Life can be heavy. Life
Mhm.
can be heavy. Sometimes I cry. Man, I love a good cry followed by a good
Yeah.
nap, you know? And I sometimes I don't even know why I'm crying. It's just like I just
Gotta
feel this
let it out.
heaviness, this cloud.
Mhm.
So it's a lot, but I'm doing the best I can.
And what does legacy mean to you, and how do you help others preserve theirs through writing?
What I really love about the art of writing, and I wish more people would appreciate, is that, okay, if you look at some of the classic authors and books, like there are books that you can go to the library or the store and pick up, and they were written 10, 20 years ago, and that person is long gone, but we still have their words so close to our hearts. I don't know. I just feel words have power. Words have incredible meaning. Language is important, and I wish people would be more responsible with that. In terms of legacy, honestly, for me, my children are the most important thing in my life. My children and my husband. And I just want them to know that their mom squeezed all the juice out of life.
Mhm.
And their mom tried her best in every facet of life. And I just want them to know that they can do anything. Actually, what I do, speaking of writing, I email my children on a regular basis. So I mean, they can't even read right now. They're so young. But I created emails for my kids and I email them on a regular basis and just let them know what's going on in their world. So what's going on in their world, what's going on in my world, so that they can read it years later. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited for them to know who their mom was outside of work.
That's a really beautiful idea. And thank you so much for sharing that. Just before I let you go, could I ask what's next for you? Are there any new projects or goals or chapters on the horizon?
I don't know what's next, and I'm okay with that. I'm not rushing to understand what's next. I'm just thinking about the here and now. And yeah, I think we're obsessed with what's next. And I think it's
Mhm.
okay to just sit in what's happening right now.
I'm with you there. Before we go, is there any like advice or parting words you'd like to leave with our audience? Perhaps we have some aspiring writers, students out there who are listening.
I encourage people to keep the lines of communication open. I'm very accessible and I answer all emails, all DMs. And if you have any questions whatsoever, know that you have a friend in me and I'm happy to help.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Pauleanna, for being with us and taking the time to grace our podcast and share your wisdom with our listeners. And of course, thank you to everyone who listened to us today. This has been your host, Patricia. And remember, for all your professional business and technical writing needs, there's only one way to go, and it's with the right direction. See you guys soon.